So Aries, your September monthly forecast sees your ruler Mars occupy your sector of relationships right through to the 22nd. That gives you an awesome opportunity to maintain your confidence in your interactions to people, not just romantically, I should say, but also to be clear on your boundaries, because I feel work is going to be a big part of this month's story, but also how you feel about things, but feel very deeply. So perhaps the more psychological dimension. And the reason for that is because of the two eclipses, but also because on the first, Saturn, the planet of structure, inverses out of your sign back into Pisces for the final time in a total cycle of 29.5 years through to the middle of February. Now, Saturn in the 12th house is very much about loose ends, but Saturn is also about endeavour, application, hard work. It's about putting in, but also using its wisdom. So Saturn can bring us harsh lessons at times, but the more we engage with it, the more we can gain. So the big part of this month is the need to juggle the more hidden, perhaps shadow side of your situation, and anything to do with the past. So that could be hurts, disappointments. It could be to do with some of your more deeper concerns or anxieties about life. On the other side of the heavens, we've got a huge amount of activity in the most practical part of your chart, which is all about the details. It's all about the fundamentals, making sure that your life routines are working efficiently. Now, if you're not feeling great, it gets much harder to service those demands. If you're feeling in tune with yourself, we're much more holistically balanced, and that means we can make sure our life is functioning efficiently. So that's all the Virgo energy. And that Virgo energy is enhanced when on the 2nd, Mercury returns to the sign it rules. If you think back, Mercury has been arcing backwards and forwards across the most glamorous part of your chart. So there may have been some dates, there may have been some times when you've done some very creative or social things, but it may not have all been in a straight line. What Mercury is asking you to do, along with the Sun, particularly as they coalesce at the heart of this month in the Cazimi, is to use your application, precision, and hard work to try to improve elements of your life which give you some kind of tangible outcome. Now, for many of us, it is about our work. But for others, it could be about the domestic routine, it could be about our love of animals, the 6th house, but it can also be about our approach to our physical well-being. So things like diet, fitness, exercise, but crucially rest. So the more you take care of the physical side, but also balance it with being in touch with how you feel, the more spiritual, psychological and emotional side, the more you can prosper this month. Now, Uranus, the planet which can be disruptive, but also is very much the innovator, does retrace its steps from the 6th through to the 4th of February next year, but it does continue to forge a stunning alliance to Pluto, the planet of transformation, which is in your sector of friendships, your network, but also your long-term plan. There may be some things that you need to attend to in September that are more to do with the functional side of life. You're actually going to get more of an opportunity to connect to people in perhaps a more meaningful way in the last 10 days once we have the autumnal equinox and the sun moves into Libra. But if you do find yourself feeling perhaps a little bit frazzled at times this month, particularly on the 7th with the lunar eclipse, just give yourself permission to know that all of us is not a machine, and however much that Virgo energy would like us all to be very metronomic, totally on time, totally precise and very virtuously efficient, we're people. So people at times need to take a breath, perhaps feel a little bit not like fulfilling some of those obligations. So give yourself the opportunity to have some escapism, very Pisces at times, particularly on that lunar eclipse, because the North Node, the point of destiny, is urging you to embrace the whole concept of healing, rest, and release. So if there are some old issues that linger in you, and they may be very historic in terms of abandonment, in terms of separation, in terms of loss or disappointment, you're coming to the end of a total 29.5 year cycle, which will start totally fresh. You've had the first blush with Saturn in your sign, but it really starts in earnest from the 14th of February next year. And that begins a new cycle of about 29 years, because we've had that first jaunt into your sign. So that's the new beginning. So there is, to a degree, some clearing up going on. But you know, Venus, the planet of peace, of relating, but also of money, but also in the sign of Leo, with a degree of glamour and drama, is forging a lovely semi-sextile to the Sun through the first 3 weeks of this month. And also once the Sun moves forwards in the early days of September, he's angling up beautifully to Jupiter. So there are some really good feel-good energies. Also, Jupiter threads into the lunar eclipse in a very positive way. If you spend time with those people who are very nurturing and perhaps not so exacting in their expectations about you fulfilling obligations to them, there's a lot to gain from that lunar eclipse, because Jupiter can give us more knowledge, but in your case, more knowledge about nurture and security and your home, the appreciation of your home, and not just for it being very tiny, tidy and ordered, but also because of the atmosphere, the rest you can get, the music you can play, the meditations you can have, the films you can enjoy, whatever really gives you that ability to feed your soul. But the conjunction between the Sun and Mercury, which becomes exact on the 13th, the 4th of this year, a superior conjunction, can give you a razor-like and laser-like ability to cut through to what's really important, despite the more opaque energies we can have with a lunation in the sign of Pisces. But also, as the month goes on, Mercury does start to go into an opposition with the newly reversed Saturn. And you might find right at the heart of this month that your spirits do drop a little bit. There could be some perfectionism that you're investing on yourself, which then can drain you. Try to avoid that when Mercury moves into the sign of Libra on the 18th. Essentially, it's saying, look, it's important to equate people's viewpoints and interactions in a bit more of a detached way, which is more air-like, because of the host Libra. Yes, Neptune is in opposition, so there still could be some confusion for a few days. But one of the things that can come to a close is the brittleness of Mercury in Virgo, particularly in that opposition with Saturn. So someone could be very picky at the heart of the month. Could be you on you, could be you on someone else, it could be someone else on you. But then we have the glamour of Venus in Leo, which could create some playful moments this month, maybe even socializing with some people you work with, or if you are loved up, you could use Venus in an imaginative way to do some thoughtful, practical gestures for a partner. But Venus then moves into Virgo on the 19th. Now, this is not the friendliest home. It is in its full here, but it gives you an opportunity to think realistically about relationships. So that's not a bad thing. And we have a solar eclipse on the 21st, which I think, especially if you are born very late in the sign of Aries, could bring some relationship issues sharply into focus. Perhaps relationships at work, to be really honest, because this solar eclipse is going to be directly opposite that of Saturn. Now, it's the only solar eclipse of this particular series that we've been having between Virgo and Pisces. The whole series began on the 18th of September last year, and that was a lunar eclipse in Pisces, which was connecting with the dreamy drifting Neptune. So if you have found since then that your physical and emotional health have been quite low at times, it really wouldn't be a surprise, because even with Saturn moving to join Neptune in your sign from the third week of May, the first house, Aries, is about raw energy, having the limiter, the greater malefic, limiting your physical vitality, and having the nebulous energy of Neptune perhaps draining you. So you may have felt very sensitive, but at times somewhat overwhelmed. So this solar eclipse is intriguing because it's the second new moon of this particular Virgo season. So it's a black moon, but a different type of black moon from the first one, because it's the second new moon of the particular Virgo season. But the symbolism really is that it comes just before we shift into a completely new quarter or quadrant of the astrological year. On the 22nd, not only does your ruler Mars take leave from your 7th house, it moves and dives deep into the psychological 8th sign of Scorpio. Now, of course, it rules this sign traditionally, but also along with Pluto in a modern context. But ironically, on the same day, the Sun, through the autumnal equinox, arrives in Libra. So what we have is Mercury, the relator, in the sign of relating, but also the autumnal equinox too. And this provides a backdrop energy for the next 13 weeks. So it's incredibly important. Western tropical astrology is predicated on the seasons, starting with the spring equinox. So this next 13 weeks for all of us is a time to think about balance, Libra, equilibrium, Libra, give and get, Libra, but also relationships. But you've had Mars, feisty Mars, of course, in the 7th house of your situation to this point. How ironic. Well, the Sun and Mercury are giving you a chance to continue to explore your opportunities around relationships. I just feel the eclipses are not just going to be impactful to you this month, but over the next half year, are asking you to keep working at trying to get that balance between the functional side of life and the part of life that we don't necessarily see. That's more the atmospheric feeling part of life. And they are in some ways mutually exclusive, but if we can find a way to be more integrative in our approach, that's going to serve your purposes well. But your focus towards the end of this month may well be relationships. But if there is a relationship that's not working very well, Mars's clash immediately through the last week of September to Pluto, another irony, the ruler of the sign of Scorpio, suggests that if you don't see a long-term future, or if you feel one particular friend, family member, or romantic partner is too controlling, there could be a major clash as this month comes to a close. But it's all because you're stepping into your power, because the more you own your sensitivities, the Pisces energy of this month, the more you will be liberated around the practical sphere and your physical vitality. So if we're caught up in pride, denial, not owning things, also being a victim, that's the more excessive, worse side of Pisces energy, but also being very critical of other people, the more lower vibrational energies of Virgo, progress will be more challenging. So if you bring it all together and can clear your mind and be very honest about the things you can be more virtuous about in the practical side of life, but also own those vulnerabilities, you're going to emerge from the end of this month owning your space, your worth, but also getting a much more secure place around all sorts of interactions with others. So it's a huge opportunity. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please check out my testimonials below. Please also check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart with a stunning free interpretation. Enjoy my wonderful 3 free card tarot, or sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each day.